Also happening overnight, a 5.2 magnitude earthquake rocking Southern California, jolting people right out of their beds. This video just coming into our newsroom a short while ago shows a street shaking, even some debris falling during the roughly 30-second quake. It hit east of Los Angeles and was felt west of LA and then all the way down to San Diego. So far, no reports of injuries or damages.
There's about a 1 in 3 chance we will experience a massive subduction zone earthquake in the Pacific Northwest. While there's no way to stop it from happening, there are things that all of us must do to prepare, and that includes emergency responders who, as you'll see only on 12, prepared for a very specific scenario near the Oregon coast today.
We want to try to go down the center one. I'll start, and you guys come through, just try to get down and go straight. Roger?
It's a tight spot they hope they never find themselves in. Search and extraction crews in training.
Ready? Ready.
Trying to reach survivors trapped inside a collapsed and contaminated hospital with damaged X-ray equipment leaking radiation. During this drill, crews tend to the wounded outside the demolished structure.
We'll have you walk over here, okay? I'll get you taken care of.
While inside, crews practice maneuvers in full contamination suits.
It's so more involved than what people think. You can't just crawl into rubble. There's hazardous materials, there's power that's on, natural gas. There could be, if something happened in a hospital, now you got X-ray machines with hazards that way.
The joint exercise is coordinated by the Oregon National Guard's Enhanced Response Force, which prepares for disasters of all types.
With any skill, the fundamentals don't change. If you're going to do search and rescue in a building, you need to know how to do it, whether it's in response to an explosion, in response to a tidal wave or a tsunami, or in response to an earthquake or a mudslide.
And gaining those fundamental skills requires preparation and practice, not just for these specialized units, but for everyday citizens.
Just do the basics. We're not asking you to have a level C suit and be able to rig up a 4-to-1 system to pull someone out of a shaft. That's our job. Your job is to stay alive and keep being able to survive until help arrives.
In a real disaster, practice may never make perfect, but a little preparation now may one day increase all of our chances of finding a light at the end of a tunnel that's too dark for many of us to even imagine.
A 5.2 earthquake jolted Southern California this morning.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about this. It happened just after 1 a.m. The epicenter about 13 miles northwest of Borrego Springs. That's in San Diego County. And CBS 2's Jasmine Veal is live this morning. She's out there on Lake Elsinore with the very latest. Jazz?
Good morning, Rick and Sandra. Yeah, so this earthquake was strong and shallow. It was felt in about a 200-mile radius from where it struck, right near Borrego Springs. Even this AM PM behind me, the cashier told me that all the signs in there started swinging back and forth. A lot of people here saying that they were woken up by the shaking. Now, apparently it lasted about 10 seconds, and that's how you know that it was at least a magnitude 5, this a 5.2. I want to show you some damage from La Quinta, because here things did not fall off the shelves, but look at this, a different story. Jesse Olvera in La Quinta took this photo of his shattered mirror in his bathroom. The strong roller just shook things right off the counter and the wall. This all around 1:04 this morning. Several aftershocks of a magnitude 3 occurred right after, and still probably happening if you're still feeling a little bit of shaking every now and then. Some home security cameras also captured some of the moving. Many people telling me again they were shaken right out of bed. They ran for the doorway. They didn't really know what to do. The quake hit in the middle of the San Jacinto Fault, which is historically the most active fault in California. No injuries or damage. Fire departments in Riverside County, they were standing by with engines to respond. Lucy Jones, a seismologist here in the Southland, told us that San Jacinto is the second fastest moving fault, right next to the San Andreas. Has a lot of these 5 and 6 magnitude quakes. I want to get to some recordings that we picked up, not only from USGS, but our own seismograph there. You can see that, the quake being picked up. Orange County Fire also got a lot of calls. About half a dozen LA County fire stations reported feeling the quake, but there you see it picked up right there. The fault, by the way, not linked to the San Andreas. Maps from USGS coming in showing the intensity of the quake according to people reporting the areas that felt the shaking. And just look, again, I said this 200-mile radius. You can see how widespread the shaking was felt all the way up to Lancaster, down to the San Diego Pass. the San Diego border, moderate intensity for the most part. So, Rick, Sandra, this morning, everyone's going to be talking about this shaker. A lot of people felt it.
We see earthquake drills all the time, but nothing like this. Tomorrow morning marks the official start of the largest preparedness drill in state history. What is this drill all about? King 5's Glenn Farley joining us live now with what's going to happen. Glenn.
Well, multiple states are going to participate in this, and one of the things they're going to look at is how can they get material to us, because ports are going to be damaged. We saw this in, for example, Kobe, Japan back in the 1990s. It took a long time to get supplies in, relief supplies in this case. That's just one aspect of all of this. The bottom line here is they say unless they do this, they will not be able to find the holes in the system, the holes they want to patch before the real earthquake gets here. This is the Washington National Guard helping deal with our record wildfires. And these pictures should give you an idea of how the Guard will help deal with the mega earthquake. And one only needs to look to Japan in 2011 to see just what a magnitude 9 quake can do, from 5 minutes of shaking to a giant tsunami. For us, it's all because of a huge fault named the Cascadia subduction zone.
The disaster relief bed.
A mega quake requiring a mega practice session. 20,000 people are involved. It's called Cascadia Rising.
So for the Cascadia Rising exercise, we're bringing in an active Army component with some Navy elements, even some Coast Guard elements.
Okay, so they're coming all the way across the country for this thing.
They are.
National Guard Lieutenant Colonel Clay Braun has spent the last 2.5 years leading the planning for this. And this tent city will house about 1/20th of the needed responders. Over at Camp Murray, a very quiet state emergency operations center will explode into action when the drill commences Tuesday morning.
What we're rehearsing is really significant to the response.
The rest of the country expected to respond because of the predicted level of devastation here. In Washington, 8,400 people could be killed with another 12,000 injuries. And that's just from the initial earthquake and tsunami. More expected to perish in the days and weeks that follow. It's a reality that's hard to take in.
The initial step are first responders throughout the entire affected area try to do their job, but they will be immediately overwhelmed.
And that's why they're trying to sort of pre-coordinate really with the rest of the region and the rest of the country, because remember, Oregon, Northern California, British Columbia are all going to be affected seriously by this earthquake. They're talking about bringing in an Army unit from Virginia that's clear over on the East Coast. That's just one element of a very, very big drill. Live in Seattle, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.
News in case you're just joining us, San Diegans are reeling after a magnitude 5.2 earthquake shook a lot of people awake around 1 this morning.
Well, it's got everybody talking. Maybe you felt it. It was centered near Borrego, but it was felt in Southern California from San Diego to Imperial County, LA County, Orange County. Dozens of aftershocks too. CBS News 8's Gene King is live downtown with an update. Gene.
Well, our viewers, so many of them reporting that they're feeling the shaking and the rattling of windows that just jolted them out of bed. We're talking about San Carlos, Temecula, North Park, Escondido, so many different areas. Now, you're not imagining things. That did happen. It was an earthquake in the early morning hours with aftershocks.
Strong and shallow earthquake struck in Anza Borrego Desert State Park in San Diego County. The magnitude 5.2 tremor struck at 1:04 a.m., 14 miles northwest of Borrego Springs.
The report's going out very early. Now, this surveillance video was posted on YouTube moments after the quake, shows the camera shaking. A seismologist says a 5.2 magnitude earthquake struck along the San Jacinto fault line at 1:04 a.m. The Anza Borrego Desert State Park in northern San Diego County, with 6 different aftershocks just minutes later, strong enough to be felt in L.A. Some of you were jolted out of bed. Others reported feeling like they were being nudged. CHP responded to a rock slide that was at Montezuma Valley Road in Palm Canyon. So far, sheriff's deputies say there are no immediate reports of injuries in the county or major damage. Firefighters pulled their trucks out of the garage to make sure their equipment wasn't damaged.
Immediately, we make sure we pull all of our apparatus outside the buildings, just in case there's any damage, collapse that takes place, that all of our equipment is outside, ready to respond.
We're getting so many reports on our website. People just saying that the quake actually almost knocked them over. Now, the epicenter was 13 miles northwest of Borrego Springs. Back out here live, we talked to a firefighter over in the Borrego Springs fire station, and this morning they say even that close to the epicenter, they have not had any reports of injuries or major damage as well. But this reporter, somehow, maybe because I'm sleep deprived, I slept right through it.
California's next big earthquake is coming, folks. You've been hearing it for so many years, but according to a leading scientist who says the Southern California section of the San Andreas Fault is now primed for some action. San Andreas is the state's longest fault and one of the most dangerous. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt live in Los Angeles for us. So, Jonathan, what are they seeing in this fault at this point?
Well, some pretty stark warnings, Martha. We haven't had a big one along the southern section of the San Andreas Fault, as earthquake scientists define a big one, since about 1857. But there's obviously been a lot of earthquake activity around the globe recently. You'll remember the terrible pictures we have seen from Ecuador, for instance. So now they're saying San Andreas Fault long overdue. And when you look at a map of the San Andreas Fault, it's about 800 miles in total in length, right along California. But it's that southern section near Los Angeles that they're concerned about. You see San Bernardino and Riverside marked there, suburbs of LA, and they say that that section looks ready to go. The quote, in fact, from Thomas Jordan, director of the Southern California Earthquake Center, was this, quote, "The springs on the San Andreas system have been wound very, very tight, and the Southern Andreas Fault in particular looks like it's locked, loaded, and ready to go." Frightening words, and every earthquake expert we've been hearing from in probably the last decade, Martha, has been saying the same thing. The one thing they can't agree on is exactly when it's coming. Martha?
Yeah, and boy, would that be helpful. So how bad do they think, looking at where this is, it could be, and has anything or can anything be done to mitigate the damage?
Well, first of all, on the preparations, they say that we should be prepared for an 8 magnitude earthquake. Obviously, that is absolutely huge. They put out a simulation, in fact, of what the shaking might look like in the LA area. And a 2008 U.S. Geological Survey report said that if we had something like a 7.8 earthquake, for instance, it could cause something like 1,800 deaths, 50,000 injuries, and something like $200 billion in damage to the Southern California area. So this is a major problem. But for a long time now, a lot of buildings in LA have been retrofitted. There are new standards, so they've done everything they can. But if the big one comes, it's going to be bad, Martha.
All right, Jonathan, thank you.